I just wanted to come on today and just encourage anybody. If you're going through anything, a relationship, if you're going through things with your kids, if you're going through things with your job, no matter what it is, we've got to stand the fight because we can win behind enemy lines. Hey, I'll see y'all on the next episode. Just stay encouraged.
On a scale of
and you'll win the battle.
1 to 10, put in the comments on a scale of 1 to 10 where you believe you are in life. Today's episode is titled How We Live. And so in the comments at the end of the show, or you can start now with on a scale of 1 to 10, where you think you are right now, how you're living right now. And at the end of the show, we'll compare what you gave yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 at the end of the show as to how you living, how we living. Welcome to another episode, an audio version of the Winning at Life Behind Enemy Lines podcast. I'm your host, #OneTime. And before I get started today, you might notice something new on screen down to the right-hand corner. If you would do me a favor, click on that at some point in time throughout this audio podcast today. And that is where you can order your Winning at Life Behind Enemy Lines t-shirts. They're up, they're ready to go. I've made it easier for you to order. And I would appreciate if you go through, if you enjoy the podcast, if you enjoy the topics. Yeah, I'm starting to loosen up, y'all, just a little bit and give a little bit more insight. You know, when I look back from when I started in mid-January, the topics actually shift, but they never really shift away from my mainstay, and that is talking about the importance of relationships. But on today's show, we want to talk about how we live it. Where are we? But do me a favor, get your smartphone out and click on the QR code in the right-hand corner and support the show. If you enjoy the podcast, support the show, purchase a t-shirt and wear your Winning at Life Behind Enemy Lines attitude. I really would appreciate it. And if you'd like to give anything, any donation at all is greatly appreciated, so I can continue doing what I believe and what I always say is in my purpose, and that is to put goodness, good news, winning out there in life for everyone that I possibly can. And so I would appreciate any amount donation. You can do that through instructions on how to order your t-shirt. At the end of it, you can label that as a Cash App donation. And again, I would so greatly appreciate that. I did that short clip earlier at the beginning of today's show that you saw, where I was talking about having receipts and winning. If you'd like to go back and watch that, it's only a couple, 2 or 3 minutes. Go back and watch it. It's merely my testimony as to how I got where I am right now, and how I got the urge to want to start the journey of a podcast. But today I want to talk about how are we living? How you living? It used to be the saying. How are we living? And again, I say this with all sincerity. You have to be living under a rock not to notice the temperature has risen for a lot of people in this country, and in particularly those now who are losing jobs, losing opportunities on jobs. A lot of jobs are being cut. And so even before this administration took office. There was an uneasiness already kind of brewing in the air. To me, the best way for me to gauge how I'm doing, how I'm living, is to put that up against myself. That's one of the reasons in college I needed an extra credit. So I took up the sport of golf. And in golf, you are competing against yourself. And when you're competing against yourself, you hold that mirror up. You hold that mirror up and you look at it and you evaluate yourself, whether you're behind enemy lines or not. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to start the show out with asking people to put on a scale of 1 to 10 where you think you are right now in life with everything happening. But before I go into that, I am, I guess I could say, a middle of the road type as it pertains to watching the news, understanding, trying to understand what's going on in the world and how it impacts me. But one of the things I've learned over the last couple, 2 or 3 years, and I used to be a news junkie. I remember as a child watching the news, watching Walter Cronkite give an update on the Vietnam War, sitting beside my dad. I'm on the floor and he's watching the news, and boy, he would shush everybody in our the news is coming on, and it'd be Walter Cronkite, and we'd watch the news. And so I grew up in an atmosphere of awareness. And so today, though, if you unpack that, if you sit and watch the news and compare it to your life, because most of the news is negative news. Let's just be honest, but people have an appetite for that, and I get it. You almost have to watch the news in order to know what's going on. But in comparison to how we live in, I take the news and I say, I need to be aware of what's going on. But I don't want my awareness of what's going on to dictate what I need to do if it directly impacts me. Oftentimes, what we do is we think so much into the future, what's about to happen, what's going to happen. We step right over what's happening right now, what's happening in our lives right now, what's happening with the relationship I have, what's happening with where am I trying to go within my purpose toward my future, what is happening right now. I say we need to be conscious of where we are right now as it pertains to how to prepare, what to prepare in the future, as well as looking toward the future. Because if, again, you've got to be living under a rock if you don't understand that the temperature is rising. Lots of people are losing their jobs. There's cut. We don't see any relief at all in the grocery store. The only thing that's been kind of stable in the last couple 2 or 3 months, in my opinion, is gas. But I can't drink gas and I can't eat gas, but I do need gas to move around. But if you look at things that are shaping up and how things are happening right now, you've got to understand that we have to compare how we live and where we are, what our goals and plans are, and what we plan to do for the future. You've got to be on some course of that. But I will be totally honest with you, y'all. There is a lot of angst, a lot of stress, a lot of mentalness that people are dealing with right now. Shout out to, and this is not to suggest that this whole episode will be totally about men, but shout out to the men right now who can get up, go to work, go out into this world, are divorced, or have kids, that you are making a valid, that you're making an effort to be in their lives, to show them and to guide them. I am not suggesting at all that there are not women out here right now who are doing the same thing. But if you watch the majority of podcasts right now, no one really seems to have a solution how we live in. And shout out to those sisters as well, those women as well, who get up every day, go to work, trying to provide, trying to raise, trying to guide their kids. Your efforts are appreciated. But by and large, men are being knocked upside the head each and every day. And we know what the divorce rates are. I was reading a statistic the other day, and I want to get my reference right. I think it was on blackamericaweb.com that said in the 1960s, and you hear me talk this language all the time because I honestly think that the situations are right in front of us. We can be aware, we cannot ignore. In the 1960s, African American children in general, there was only 35% of the households were headed by a single parent. As the statistics stand right now, that has almost tripled. It's almost 75%. You think about this, 75% of kids in the African American community, nearly 75%, are born to single households. Y'all, that's huge. That's huge for us. And I'm asking the question today how we're living, because that has an direct impact on the future of our kids, on the future and in the present of our relationships. And if you don't think that living behind enemy lines in that regard, in those regard, as it pertains to those circumstances, is huge. Again, you must be living in the matrix. You must be living under a rock. Mental illness is on the rise, and I believe it's higher than what is reported when it comes to the lives of African American men. We are still not where we need to be as it pertains to seeking help, relief from mental stress, let alone all the other stress out in the world. How you living? I'm trying to check in today and ask, how are we living as it pertains to our mental health? We know what's going on with our health, and I was just wondering the other day, and I look for it. I scour the internet for information. I want to know, and if anybody knows, shoot me an email, write a comment. What's going on with African American males, men who are in the middle class or just below the mental class? What is the mental stress level there? I was in a training years ago, and the trainer did an exercise, and we were trying to gauge, and almost like the same way, where are we in our careers? Where are we in our lives with our personal goals, as our personal goals are concerned? Where are we? So she asked everybody to get a sheet of paper out, draw a horizontal line across the middle of the paper, landscape. Just, and you can, I mean, if you want to, this is an audio podcast, you can put down your smartphone and go get a sheet of paper and do this exercise for yourself. And in the exercise, we got out a sheet of paper and drew a horizontal line. And on the line, she said, place an X as to where you are. Just below the line, place an X as to where you believe you are. And then just above the line, place an X. The conclusion in that exercise hit me, and this was years ago, hit me like a ton of bricks. You are either, let's assume the horizontal line represents water, the ocean. And you are either at the line, you're not drowning, but you are trying to swim to shore, or you are below the line and you're drowning and you need a raft. You need some type of life-saving device. And this is not everyone. Again, let me be clear. There are lots of people who are living their life in a way that is pleasing to them. They're meeting their goals. But then there are a lot of people, a lot of men in particular, who are not. And, just as we went on with we concluded that if you are above the line, you're doing well. But that's a low percentage when it comes to where is your mental health state at? Where are you there? How you living there? Relationships, shifting relationships. The numbers do not lie. In the African American community, we are the highest divorced. And I understand on a lot of the podcasts, people are giving advice. You remember the one years ago. I can't recall his name just right off the top, but an evangelical PhD guy wrote a book entitled The 5 Love Languages. You all remember that. You would see them online in comments, and if you have worked the space of online relationships, trying to date, because people's lives are just totally everywhere, and I get that as well. But if you actually subscribe to the concept and the theory of the 5 love languages, and in my opinion, I'm just going to tell you, I think they're played out. I think they're played out, and I can't quite remember all of them, but giving gifts words of affirmation, physical touch, you know, on and on. But I think if we're going to save our relationships, if we're truly going to save, we've got to change those. And I was just preparing for this audio podcast, and I just wrote down a few that I honestly believe that these need to become the love languages. I think number one, we need to understand where we are as a people, where we are as a race, how we allow current culture to dictate how we move and where we move. We are totally distracted. There are so many distractions going on. You've got to not play it like a zero-sum game. We've got to have a plan to get out. But I honestly believe if we're going to get back to healing our relationships, if we're going to get back to raising kids, and I'm not saying there are people out there that are not raising their kids. What I'm saying is, and you don't have to agree. You don't have to agree at all. But it's tough. It's tough out there when nearly 75% of our kids are in homes headed by one parent. It's tough. But I think our love languages need to evolve again. I think it would help us if our love languages spoke in terms of respect, restored respect for one another, restored respect for one another in terms of even liking each other. I've never seen so many podcasts that will dehumanize men and women. And if you listen to a lot of it, you will find yourself caught in a quagmire of it's not even worth it. How and when did we get to the point to where we said, I don't need a woman, I don't need a man? It's crazy. I think restored respect needs to be a love language that we begin to speak again. I think committing to a relationship, and I get it. It's hard, y'all. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard on the yard. I'm telling you, it's hard. It's very hard. But it can be done. We've got to shift and decide what direction we really want to start moving in. Commitment has to be a part of the new love language. Respect, restored respect. Easy respect. How you doing in the grocery store? Can I help you take that to your car? We have created a culture almost that we don't even like each other. I was reading the other day, or I was watching a podcast. I can't really remember which one. But the gist of it was a young lady came on and said, listen, I'm going to make this very clear. If you don't have X, Y, and Z, and if you're not here, there, and everywhere, you don't even deserve to go out on a date. And I thought, how absurd. Now, it only sounds absurd to men and some women who are out here behind enemy lines, living their life, trying to provide, how we living, trying to provide for themselves and their kids, their mental health. And I thought, wow, if that is the case, then we're in really tough shape. How we living on relationships. Here's another one that I think we need to slide in our relationships. Love language. Sacrifice. Don't nobody want to sacrifice anymore. That's what it seems like. And you may have a totally different opinion from me on this. I can only tell you how I was raised. I can only tell you what my experience was as it pertains to relationships when I was growing up, which just from watching those became my expectations in relationships. My parents were married over 60 years, 9 kids. My parents were married that long. I have older siblings who had been married or had been married for a long time, 20, 30, 40 years. I'm on up there in age. But I remember as a 10-year-old, one of my older sisters, and the guy she was going out with, who was now my brother-in-law, when I was 10, would take me to their high school games. They're still together. So you don't have to agree with my perspective. I'm just saying, if we're going to talk another love language, if we're going to evaluate how we live in, if you're going to do that individually for yourself, it's okay to slide in the love language. Sacrifice. Find a reason to stay together, because there are 1,000,001 squared why you should leave, why you should break up the family, how we live in. I think another word that we should use as it pertains to relationships and how we're living. Realistic. Is it realistic? I say yes if there's a goal attached. My son got married a couple years ago now, and the whole time I was trying to come up with advice for him and his wife about marriage, about growing a family, having goals on the inside of your family. And the only thing I could come up with, the only statement, the only advice I could give them was, whenever it get tough, because trust me, it's going to get tough, remember your why. Remember why you got married. Remember your why. But realistically speaking, as it pertains to a love language, let's be realistic. Men, if your belief, if you're entrenched in your belief that there are no good women, and women, if you believe that there are no good men, then I'm not talking to you. But if you believe that there are, and you can establish a solid relationship, make sure it's realistic. Make sure you're willing to count the cost. Make sure you have respect. Make sure you're committed. And stop playing these games out here and having women yield to different men all the time, and vice versa. Men are having all different types of women enter your life, and you have kids, and you all that is mixed in the relationship, and then that really don't walk, it really don't work out, because all you really wanted was the physical, how you living. You're doing damage to the culture, because that creates single parent homes, broken homes, broken kids. It's already tough enough, depending upon how you split or if you split. When things go down in a relationship and you've got to split, you best believe those kids are going to be impacted. It might not be right away. It might be right away. But on down the line, from a natural curiosity point of view, they're going to ask the question, what happened? And if there aren't at least some answers to that, it's going to impact them. Be realistic about the relationship you want. Be realistic about what you want in the relationship. If you're just out here playing a game right now, you're not aiding the culture. Sorry. You're just not aiding the culture. You are fueling the cultural divide within your culture. You are aiding the cultural demise in your culture. We've got a lot of other things on our plate as individuals and as groups. But I say being realistic when you get into a relationship is of grave importance, because it can save you time and it can save you money. It can save you resources if you're realistic. Another love language I think we need to speak, regardless of if it's a romantic relationship that involves kids, friends, and to some extent, your community. Goal-oriented relationships. That should be a love language. What is the goal? I have no issue getting into a relationship to where at some point in the early stages, we talk about the goals. Where do we want to go? Where do we want to be? How do we want to end up? How do we want to say how we're living? I think it's very important to note that as it pertains to shifting relationships, the pressure to succeed. All we see in front of us every day, and if you have a cell phone, if you've got a smartphone and you have it in your hand most of the day and you're scouring social media, regardless of what it is, lots of things, lots of distractions are being thrown at us all the time. Every time you turn around, something's happening. The Oscars, the Super Bowl, the this, the that. Everything. And I'm not saying don't go out and enjoy your life. That ain't what I'm saying at all. That I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about, though, being aware and conscious of where we are, of where you are as an individual. Careers are shifting. If you don't think that there's a plan in place to cut their jobs all over the country, cut teachers, cut everything. If you don't think that there is a vast preparing for artificial intelligence, artificial work, AI is putting people as we know it out of business, out of work. And what needs to happen is relationships must be at a level. They cannot be below the line. If you're at the line, let's throw these individuals who are merely at the line asking for help so we can all get above the line. If you don't think AI is taking over and we're going to have to recreate ourselves, recreate jobs, recreate lives, be creative. There's no such thing as one job now. Shout out to all the people who live by themselves and only making enough just to get by. And I say shout out because you're maintaining, you're winning. But if you don't have a side hustle today, if you don't have an extra job, if you don't have extra income, or if you don't have an individual whom you are committed to in a relationship, helping, working toward your goals, you're struggling. And you don't have to take my word for it. Watch the statistics, read them and know them. Be aware of where you are. It's so difficult today to build financial security when you're just paid a little above the standard wage. Navigating that course with individuals in your ear saying you need to save 35 to 40% of your income and you need to have, I'm not saying these things can't be done. What I'm saying is there is a segment of the population. Let me just point directly to African American males. We have the fewest percentage of African American males making over $100,000 a year, to where you can even, and it depends on where you live. If you make $100,000 in New York, good luck. You might as well be making 45. If you make $100,000 in Los Angeles, Atlanta, Houston, you're just like everyone else in terms of trying to prepare your life from a financial standpoint of view, how we live it. But we have so many distractions and so many, areas that we need to concentrate on in and around our lives that depend, that our kids' future depend on it. Depending upon where you sit, depending upon where you sit, depending upon what you believe, that's actually where it is. But when we have an appetite, because, in many cases, and again, I get it. I mean, you take, for example, a young man who only makes X amount of money, has kids, has 2 or 3 kids, right? He gets divorced, or he has kids and he's on child support. And please don't y'all come for me with the child support, because I ain't talking to you about what I read. I'm talking to you about what I've lived. And you take 30% of what you earn, there's not very much room to actually live. You need to work yourself to death in order to get it. And I'm not saying, above all else, do not take care of your kids, because there's one type of man that gets under my skin, and that's one who won't take care of his kids. If you don't take care of your kids, I really don't have a relationship or run in circles with men who do not take care of their kids. It's difficult to live on that. And if you don't have a at least halfway decent relationship with the child's mother. How you living? If you got to struggle to get them, if you got to struggle to see them, it's time to get rid of all that nonsense and restore respect, commitment, sacrifice, realistic goals, zeroed in on all the goals that can help prop up the culture, that can help grow our relationships, grow the relationships that we have with our kids. Maneuvering the future is starting to look like a slippery slope behind enemy lines. What should we be doing right now? One, I say we've got to hold that mirror up. We've got to recognize where we are in our lives right now and begin to work toward any change that we want to improve our lives. Y'all, we have a short shelf life on earth. And the sooner you can get to walking in your purpose and what you are supposed to be doing, then you can evaluate how you're living. We've got to do real talk. We've got to do real talk with our youth. We've got to do some talk, and a lot of the talk is going to hit people like a ton of bricks, and a lot of people are not going to like it. A lot of people are not going to like straight talk as it pertains to how we live it. But we can come out from behind enemy lines victorious. Yes, we can. I ran into a group of young men. They may have been middle school or early high school. I ran into them in a convenience store a few days ago, and they were actually in there standing around in the store. You got $1? You got a dime? Have you got a nickel? And I don't have an issue with that. I normally will give a little bit of a change to anyone in front of me that might be short on some change. I don't have an act of kindness to me. If it's worth 85 cents, okay, all right, I don't have an issue with it. But then I walked outside and I got in my car, and as I was driving off, I was thinking to myself, what parent wouldn't invest $200, $180 in their kid and said, hey, look, let's go get some supplies to start you off on how to earn money. I'm going to take you to some shops where men get their hair cut, and you go in there because from what I've noticed, most everybody wears tennis shoes today. Your Georgia. I don't know the brands. I don't know all of that, but I do know that there are men that come in the shop wouldn't mind having shoes shined up, right? Get your cell phone, create a QR code, go in and get you some supplies and ask. And to a lot of you that might say, well, man, ain't nobody gonna shine shoes. That's the problem. We got too much pride. Ain't no kid go, but yet you go get them a $200 or $300 PlayStation. Come on now. How we living? When the latest Jordans come out, $190 to $200, you go get them because you think they deserve them. And I'm not saying they don't deserve them. We've got to change how we train our kids, how we rear them, how we bring them up, how we teach them. And I'm not saying everybody's. but I am talking about a lot of kids that I've seen in my career and over the years. Y'all, we've got to get to the point to where we hold the mirror up in front of our own face and say, how we living? I don't have room in my conversation to put anybody down. It's tough out here. The temperature is rising. The temperature is rising. Where are we? How we living? How are we really living right now? And I just wanted to pose the question today on this audio version podcast. I know where I am because I constantly have that mirror up and I know what I need to do. I'm talking about me as well. But I want to remind you, if you enjoy the podcast, if you like the show, like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification so you can be on top of the game and get any new episodes. Hey, I have enjoyed our short time today. I look forward to seeing you midweek of this week. Have a blessed week. Ask yourself, and don't forget, in the comments, compare yourself right now. Where are you? How you living? How you living? Let me know how you're living, and we'll drive the conversation with strategic information and goals that we need. Again, I've enjoyed our show today. Remember, if you're going to win the battle, we've got to stay in the fight, y'all. We've got to stay in the fight. I appreciate you. Thank you for all your support. Peace.